Hello, everyone. So this is the first formal going through the writing piece of Revelation 17. Although I did a video before a couple of days ago last week, which went through what I was going to write about. It was basically just a live stream going verse by verse through the chapter. There was also one part that I explained in that video that I'm not going to explain in writing because by this point, if you guys have been following along, this isn't going to be for the casual observer of my channel, and my channel is not one to attract people that aren't really pre-tribbers or at least that aren't premillennial. You don't have to be a pre-tribber, but you do have to be a premillennial to find my channel entertaining at all. And premillennial means that you believe that we are pre-kingdom. That's basically what it means, is pre-kingdom. We are pre-millennial kingdom right now in this present dispensation. So when I went through imagery of Revelation 17:3, talking about he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, that's talking about it being prophetic. And that's the third time that language has appeared in this book. I believe there's one more time it will appear, but that denotes that he's seeing prophecy. So when you understand that John was being given the revelation in 95 AD and he was experiencing something prophetic, it means it's not for our dispensation now. And it also hadn't already happened, which means it can't be linked to something prior to 95 AD, certainly not to 70 AD or to some BC historical date. So that's one of the things I'm not going to explain because my audience is not one where that explanation is valuable in writing. And people who are going to be reading my written study of the book of Revelation are probably not even going to care about that specific thing because you all already know, just by virtue of being here and sharing a common foundation of beliefs, that this is all prophetic. So I don't feel the need to explain that in writing. I did explain it in writing in Revelation 1 and 4. I'm not going to do it again here. But Revelation 1 and 4, when he was in the spirit to see the glorified Christ on the Lord's Day. Well, the Lord's Day is the second coming, and yes, obviously it was prophetic to 95 AD. And then Revelation 4 begins the beginning of the hereafter, which is the prophetic part of the book. He's in the spirit. When he witnessed a door open in heaven, heard a voices of a trumpet talking with him, saying, "Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter." Immediately he was in the spirit, which means that that's prophetic. If you doubted that it's prophetic and think that it's already happened, then you're wrong. And so this is Revelation 17 does the same thing. It brings that up again, being in the spirit, which means that it's prophetic. And if anyone were to misunderstand who and what Babylon is and attribute it to something past or even present, then you're wrong. And there's specific language in the book of Revelation to tell you that it is wrong to attribute it to past or present. And so those are the three spots that we've already encountered, one of them in this chapter. I'm not going to spend time explaining that again. I'm telling you that right now. So if you're listening to this video and or if you already listened to the other part of this that I did, you know that. While I understand that there is a great propensity to take things out of context with regard to Babylon and to make it a quote unquote system when it is a city, and to attribute it to the first half of the 70th week rather than to the second half of the 70th week, we're going to put that all in context. I can only help so much. People are going to have to do this on their own and commit to their beliefs on their own. And if they choose to believe things that aren't true, or they take the literal and make it figurative, or make it allegorical, or spiritualize it, or whatever it is that they do that distorts context. I can't help with that. And I'm not going to continually try to speak against it. I'm just going to tell you what it is. And you're either going to have to make your peace with that or decide that you just disagree with me. And both of those things are fine. Both of those things are fine. Those are choices that you guys all have to make. So I'm going to preface this by saying that is not going to be addressed, but it does appear again in this chapter to let you know that every single thing related to Babylon is prophetic. It has nothing to do with anything historical in the context of Revelation. It has nothing to do with anything in the present dispensation. And it also has nothing to do with the first half of the 70th week. And that is what we're going to begin this study talking about. So, Revelation 17, understanding the imagery. And I will post this. I spent some time yesterday and I think the day before kind of cleaning up some of the formatting in this document, and I had some pictures that had shifted and I'm not sure what and why. And when I was copying some text from previous chapters, I realized that I needed to go back and proofread some more in those spots. So I did that too, just cleaning up some things. But so if anybody noticed anything from like Revelation 9 or 13 or whatever, I don't know what I was doing. If things moved or what happened, I don't know. But I did clean up some of that stuff earlier. And if you didn't notice, then don't even worry about it. It's fixed anyway now. So after I go through this and I'm comfortable with the proofreading part of it here, I will update this on Academia, and then you will have up through what I'm going through today. So this is Revelation 17, Understanding the Imagery. We have now come to the third of 3 interlude chapters in the book of Revelation. Revelation 7 was the first, Revelation 10 was the second, and Revelation 17 will be the last. The purpose of the interlude chapters is to take us outside the specific sequence of ongoing events and to either show us related things in greater detail or to preview things shortly to come. In Revelation 7, the purpose of the interlude was to answer the question posed at the conclusion of Revelation 6, the last verse in the chapter. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? The whole of Revelation 7 did indeed answer that question by listing the 2 specific groups of people who will be able to stand, one of which will remain on earth, while the other will have been redeemed from the earth and was shown in heaven. The purpose of Revelation 10's interlude was to foreshadow the next events to come, specifically the sounding of trumpet 7, and precisely pinpoint it to the midpoint of Daniel's 70th week. And as a side note, the reason why that's important is to exclude people from concluding the wrong things. What I mean is the Bible will exclude all of the wrong things until you can only conclude the right answer. When you follow Revelation through and study all the way through from start to finish, you will find that placing trumpet 7 at the end of the 70th week is what many people, I wouldn't say most, but many people are prone to do based on similarity of language, but not exactness of language, and they totally misconstrue it. So the purpose of Revelation 10 is to pinpoint the 7th trumpet to the midpoint of the 70th week and to be exclusionary for the folks who try to put it at the end of the 70th week. It is not. It is at the midpoint, and that is the purpose of Revelation 10. This final interlude chapter is designed to explain imagery imagery related to the main players and places who are entirely consequential to the second half of the 70th week, and to show how it specifically relates to the judgment which was prophesied to occur at the end of Revelation 16. This imagery will include the woman, the beast, the 7 heads, and the 10 horns. Now, much of what we will discuss within this chapter was already discussed in our Revelation 13 and 14 study, as well as our Revelation 9 study. If you happened to miss those or are unsure how I drew specific conclusions, it will all be repeated as we make our way through the text. So, having briefly explained the purpose of this chapter, along with highlighting where supporting text is found elsewhere in Revelation, let us commence our study of Revelation 17. So I start with the first 9 verses here, and obviously we will go through them all individually. There came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. There you go. He carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. That's prophecy. So if anyone conflates Babylon with anything present or tells you it's a system that's already in place, they are wrong. 100%. This is entirely prophetic. And it's not even prophetic to the first half of the 70th week. It's not linked to the rider on the white horse in Revelation 6. It is linked to the Revelation 13 beast and the midpoint of the 70th week. So if anyone is wrong on those points, you're going to interpret Babylon incorrectly and then probably spiritualize it and then talk about how it's a system. And that is a cornucopia. You're trying to find a word of disaster. Don't do that. Revelation 17:3, very clear that this is 100% prophetic, which means it has nothing to do with us. And it also has nothing to do with the first half of the 70th week. So please be clear on that. I saw a woman sit on a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of saints and with the blood of martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. One of the things as I'm reading through this, and I'm actually going to add this, so I need to make a note to myself, what you see here, and I will highlight this. I do actually need to make a note to myself, so please hold while I do that. Okay, so I just wrote myself a note, and I'm just going to expand upon something I already mentioned in this chapter, and we'll go through, and I'll tell you where I'm going to include that expansion. So I will include that expansion prior to uploading this on Academia. But anyway, it's got to do with verse 4, and being arrayed in purple and scarlet color, decked with gold, precious stones, and pearls. This is really the contrast that I'm seeking. But anyway, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. The angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which thou sawest was and is not, shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell in the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Now, understanding that that is a lot of text to begin with, we'll go through all of it. I included all of that to highlight a few very important details off the bat. The woman, also called the whore, who is about to be judged, is depicted as sitting on 3 different things. So I actually will... Why did it not delete? Delete. Okay. So I'm just gonna delete those, and then I'm going to, oh man. Okay. Bold, underline, there we go. I just changed the formatting a little bit, sorry. The woman, so she sitteth upon many waters. She sits upon a scarlet-colored beast. 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So this woman is no more a woman than the beast is actually a beast, or the many waters are actually waters. Here is like the key chapter, or the key paragraph in this whole chapter, if there is one. The woman is no more a woman than the beast is actually a beast, or the many waters are actually waters. This chapter is full of imagery, which is not designed to be taken literally. This will be explained in the plain text, so we do not get confused. This imagery. Everything we seek to understand will be fully explained. The important thing for us to do is to take the plain text explanations at face value. So you're being given imagery in this chapter, and then the chapter tells you what it means by the imagery. In the plain text, it explains what it means. When it says the woman, who is she, what is she, it tells you what it is. When it talks about the beast, it tells you who it is. When it talks about the 10 kings, it tells you who they are. When it talks about the 7 heads, it tells you who they are. There is zero guesswork involved in this. So if you are not taking the explanations, the plain text explanations of the imagery at face value, then you're probably coming to wrong conclusions. So the important thing for us to do is to take the plain text explanations at face value. It will always tell you exactly what it means. Let it. The first thing we need to start with is understanding where the judgment will emanate from, which will impact this woman. The answer to that was found in the previous chapter, will be affirmed in this chapter and the next. Revelation 16:17. The seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." There were voices and thunderings and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. The great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. I was talking and I realized my video stopped, not sure why. But for those of you who missed it in the previous part, I'm scrolling back up to the Revelation 16 study. I put a chart together of the places in the Old Testament where the Old Testament prophets, major and minor, affirm the timeline given in Revelation 16, where the great city is divided into 3 parts. That's Jerusalem. The cities of the nations fall, and then great Babylon comes into remembrance before God to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So that's all over the Old Testament major and minor prophets. And I will also discuss here momentarily how there might be some people who say, and this is from comments that I have gotten where they'll say, people will bring it to my attention that some people say, like Jerusalem is Babylon or something like that. And no, the Bible will exclude all of the wrong things until you can only conclude the right answer. But it's also going to tell you exactly what it means so that it doesn't have to exclude wrong things. And it's the fault of us to not just take it at face value when it's intended to be taken at face value. And I think maybe that's just a problem that some people have, is discerning what's literal versus figurative. And they don't understand the boundaries that exist, and they apply interpretation inappropriately. If the Bible tells you what it means and it can be taken literally, do that. So coming back here to this chapter, the judgment that we should be anticipating is that of great Babylon, which came into remembrance before God to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Thus this chapter and the next will show us the judgment of that place. However, before we discuss the judgment and specifically tie the woman to great Babylon, let us discuss the 3 things upon which this woman is shown to be seated: the waters, the beast, and the 7 mountains. 7. Revelation 17:15. He saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Very, very easy. Tells you exactly what it means. The waters are all people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. This aligns with previous text quoted from the chapter, which says thus: the great horse sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues equals kings of the earth and inhabitants of the earth. It's everybody. All will have been participatory in the woman's stance against God. We were first introduced to the idea of fornication, which is equal to the worship of false gods, and the judgment of those who are participatory in such activities from the letter to the church of Thyatira. And this was something that somebody else brought up in the live stream, and I didn't understand why they were saying that. Well, that's why they're saying that. So I understood it now as I was going through this. Revelation 2:20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication, and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. Behold, I will cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of their deeds. In the context of Revelation 2, there was a story about an actual woman named Jezebel from the Old Testament at the heart of the teaching. In Revelation 17, the woman or whore is neither Jezebel nor an actual woman. However, the imagery is used to depict the same truth. People who stand against Jesus will be cast into judgment and face destruction. Here in Revelation 17, that judgment will relate to those who are led astray by the whore who sits upon many waters. Who is this whore that shall be judged? Revelation 17:3. So he carried me away in the spirit, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, having full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color. I'm not going to read through that again, but it is here. And I basically just recited text I cited earlier because it's now time to discuss it. To begin to make sense of this, we must understand that the woman is a reference to the city Babylon, the same great Babylon that was prophesied to be destroyed at the conclusion of Revelation 16. This imagery here is used to depict the reach of Babylon throughout the ages as the city that is set against God and thus permits all activities which are set against God, including pagan worship. Indeed, the woman is titled Mother of Harlots. It doesn't mean that every action came from Babylon. It means that there was a beginning point, and that was Babylon. And this actually goes back to Nimrod and the Tower of Babel once upon a time in Genesis 10 or 11. It's the mother of harlots. It's the beginning point from which everything flowed down. So you can say that there are pagan religions or idolatrous religions all throughout the earth, but there was a central place from which they all came, and that is Babylon. So I think people just kind of gloss over the mother of, and they're like, well, that's a harlot religion. That's a harlot religion. Yeah, okay, fine. But Babylon is the mother of harlots. So please pay attention to that because there's a message there. Not that there can't be other cities that are anti-God, other religions that are anti-God. Everything that isn't leading you to Jesus is anti-God and is a harlot religion, quote unquote, harlot religion. Babylon is the mother of harlots. Okay? Revelation 17:5. Upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. The woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Babylon is where the beast will establish his headquarters during the second half of Daniel's 70th week. This move from Jerusalem to Babylon was marked by the second angel, which will fly through the midst of the heaven in Revelation 14. There followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The meaning of this angel's warning, along with Revelation 17's representation of Babylon, is made clear in Revelation 18. Revelation 18:1. After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power. And the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. You know what I'm going to do here? Unclean and hateful bird. There we go. It's actually language that we're going to talk about in just a second, but Revelation 18, and I will, when I get to Revelation 18, I will bring this back up again. But it talks about Babylon being fallen because it's the home of every like demonic entity possible. Yeah, because they're setting up shop in Babylon at the second half of the 70th week, and a lot of those things are going to come out of the bottomless pit when it's opened and amidst trumpet 6 and all of that. So the unclean and hateful bird is actually shown specifically in Zechariah 5, which is taking the woman and setting her upon her own base in the land of Shinar. So I'm just going to highlight that. But as a side note, that Babylon is fallen also refers to her inevitable destruction. And this we see in Isaiah 21:9. Behold, here cometh a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen. Yes, they're in Revelation also. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground. This is also the fulfillment of Zechariah 5. The chart on the next page was also included in our Revelation 13 study to show the relationship of Babylon the Great and the Beast to the book of Daniel. Zechariah 5 notes the transition from judgment over parts of the earth, which were trumpets, to judgment over the whole to judgment over the whole of the earth, the vials, with the reintroduction of Babylon onto the world stage. Note that the flying roll is a reference to the scroll that we see being read from in previous chapters of Revelation. The same scroll that Ezekiel told us contains lamentations and mourning and woe. So maybe I will. Do I have enough room for that here? Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Nope, I don't have enough room for it. That's why I didn't include it there. Got it. Okay. I thought I had enough room for it there, but I don't. And I don't want to put this on another new page. But anyway, so I re-included the chart from the book of Daniel, and you will see here in this bottom section, you have the woman riding the beast. She's in the book of Daniel chart, not as part of the book of Daniel, but as tangent to the book of Daniel, because the beast that she's riding is in the book of Daniel. So the beast is mentioned in Revelation 2 as the legs of iron and feet of iron and miry clay, which we're going to talk about in the part of the Revelation 17 imagery I haven't gotten to yet, which is about the 10 kings. Also in Daniel 7, in the night visions, the fourth beast, dreadful, it's diverse from the others that came before it, dreadful, break in pieces, stamp the residue with the feet of it, and it had 10 horns, all of that. Also in Daniel 9, obviously, shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, which is tied to Daniel 11, Daniel 8, and Daniel 11. So the woman riding the beast is Zechariah 5 and Revelation 17. And the imagery that we're going to go through in Zechariah 5 in just a second tells you that where it started is where it's going to end, because I have this arrow that leads you back to the beginning, which is the head of gold, the lion, Babylon. Babylon is Babylon. And I don't... This is one of those things where I understand that people do say that it's not Babylon. They give some other interpretation of it. But because of my own study, that simply doesn't make sense to me. There's a lot that people say that doesn't make sense to me. I know that they do say it, but I can't personally make sense of it because I don't know where or why they're saying what they're saying. And just having studied all of this out myself, I know what it's supposed to mean. And so when people diverge from that and I don't understand why they're saying it, then I get that they do, but I don't understand why that they do. So, sorry. I cannot empathize with some of this stuff. Indeed, the woman, wickedness, will be set upon its own base in the land of Shinar. Oh, I didn't paste the Zechariah text back in. Well, I need to do that. There we go. I deleted it. Yeah, I'm going to find a way to put it up here. Okay, sorry about that. It was bothering me. So I just deleted like half of verse 2, which isn't needed for context here. And it works. It's up there. So now you have the color coding. So it's a haven of every unclean and hateful bird, of which are the storks that carry the woman into the wilderness to set her upon her own base in the land of Shinar. But Zechariah 5. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. That's the scroll that's opened and was being read from. But with the pouring out of seventh vial, there came a great voice out of heaven from the throne saying, It is done, so it's not in the process of being read from anymore. However, it was amidst the process of being read from when they relocated to Babylon. Then said he unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the whole of the earth, which is intended to be understood of the vial judgments, which is why I noted here. Zechariah 5 notes the transition from judgments over parts of the earth, which was the trumpets, to judgment over the whole of the earth, the vials, with the reintroduction of Babylon onto the world stage. So that's what the language here is talking about. Then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, Lift up now thine eyes and see what it is that goeth forth. And I said, What is it? And he said, This is an ephah that goeth forth. He said, Moreover, this is their resemblance through the whole of the earth. Behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead. And this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. And he said, This is wickedness. He cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof. Then lifted I up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, and they had the wings like the wings of a stork. Unclean and hateful bird. And they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heaven. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, Whither do these bear the ephah? And he said unto me, To build it an house in the land of Shinar. and to be established and set there upon her own base. So, set upon its own base in the land of Shinar takes you right back to Babylon, because if you read Daniel 1, it tells you that the Israel in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, the first captivity of the first of the 3 exiles of the Babylonian captivity, carted them away captive to Shinar. Babylon is Babylon, on the plains of Shinar. Indeed, the woman wickedness will be set upon its own base in the land of Shinar, Babylon. Where it all began is where it will all end, and by the hand of the beast she made powerful will she be destroyed. Revelation 17:16. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, shall make her desolate and naked, shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Now, in addition to being pictured as sitting upon many waters, the woman was also said to be sitting upon the beast as well as upon 7 mountains. The city of Babylon was never set on 7 literal mountains. We will be shown what those 7 mountains represent shortly. However, Revelation 17 describes Babylon as a woman harlot whore who commits fornication for the purpose of contrasting it with New Jerusalem, which is represented as a bride. The latter is holy, while the former is absolutely not. And this is a contrast. This is what I paused the video earlier to write myself a note about, is to contrast New Jerusalem in Revelation 21 with Babylon in Revelation 17:4, because it mentions gold and precious stones and pearls, and those are all things that are used in the construction of New Jerusalem. So I need to just expand this a little bit to show the contrast. I'm not going to do that right now. Actually, maybe I will. Okay, so I just inserted what I wanted to insert to further underscore the point that I'm making about why Babylon was described as a woman. The city of Babylon was not set on seven literal mountains. We will be shown what those 7 mountains represent shortly. However, Revelation 17 describes Babylon as a woman harlot whore who commits fornication for the purpose of contrasting it with New Jerusalem, which is represented as a bride. The latter is holy, while the former is not, is absolutely not. So what we see from Revelation 17:4 is that she was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, but she was decked with gold, precious stones, and pearls, and the woman sitting on 7 mountains. This is entirely a contrast to New Jerusalem, which was set on a great and high mountain, the great city, holy Jerusalem. So it's Great Babylon versus Great City, Holy Jerusalem. The city New Jerusalem was pure gold, and it talks about precious stones and pearls, which is obviously a contrast. So I just wanted to further underscore that point, that is why the imagery of Babylon is as it is because it is a contrast to New Jerusalem. The great city Jerusalem is not Babylon the Great. Rather, Jerusalem was named as the great city that will be divided into 3 parts in Revelation 16's Vial 7 earthquake. It was also described as a great city in Revelation 11, where also our Lord was crucified. The whore is set upon 7 mountains, whereas the bride is set upon 1, Mount Zion. In our study of Revelation 9, we discussed the importance of mountains in the Bible, and specifically the mountain that stands against God's holy mountain of Zion, the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Mountains, like horns, like the 10 horns, represent power. It is from the mount of the congregation we haven't talked about that yet, so I'll delete that. Mountains represent power. It is from the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north that the northern army will originate. Joel 2, and this is all from the Revelation 9 study, so if you missed this, just go back to Revelation 9. It's what I ended that chapter with, but I basically copied and pasted it, so you don't have to go back. But Joel 2 shows Jesus defeating the northern army at his second coming. We also came to understand from the link between Joel 2 and Revelation 9 that the northern army will be supernatural in its composition. The fact that it is called the northern army demonstrates this. So we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. As we have come to understand through our Revelation study, the beast and the woman will sit the beast that the woman will sit upon is the king of the locusts, the angel of the bottomless pit, Apollyon the destroyer. Principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places, thrones, dominions. Any type of power that believes it can stand against Jesus will attempt to stand against Jesus to be defeated by Jesus. These powers that stand against Jesus likewise stand against his holy mountain, Mount Zion. These powers of spiritual wickedness come from the high place that is understood to be Mount Zaphon, the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. And this is Isaiah 14. Lucifer wanting to ascend. He will sit upon the mount of the congregation, the sides of the north. He will ascend above the height of the clouds. He will be like the Most High. And then this is a word study that I did talking about what north means. Per the language study shown above, north is a reference to Zaphon, a dark hiding place. Historically, Mount Zaphon, a dark hiding place, like darkness. Like the beast kingdom was covered with darkness when Vial 5 was poured out. It's a dark hiding place. Historically, Mount Zaphon has been linked to Baal via Baal Zaphon, god of the north, and it represented the pagan and idolatrous Canaanite high places. Paul ties this north reference to rulers of the darkness of this world and spiritual wickedness in high places. This word north is also used in Ezekiel 38 and 39 to describe where Gog's army will come from. Out of the north parts. Doesn't mean that that's not geographic in its implication, but that it's spiritual in its implication also. So it's in Ezekiel 38:15 and Ezekiel 39, 1 through verse 2 specifically. In Ezekiel 38, Gog is described as a prince. Daniel also referred to 5 different princes in his book, including the Messiah the Prince. Paul writes the following of Messiah the Prince in Colossians. For by him were all things created, that are in heaven, that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Daniel further describes the prince who shall come, which is Revelation 6's rider on the white horse, the prince of Persia, the prince of Grecia, and Michael, the great prince, which stands for the children of thy people. Similarly, Gog is the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. In the Old Testament, there are countless references to the destruction of mountains or high places, for those are the places where idols and false gods were worshipped. Here are just a few to help underscore the point. So I'm not going to read them, but I have Leviticus 26:30, Numbers 21:28, Numbers 33:52, Deuteronomy 33:29. Lucifer himself desired to sit in the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Unfortunately for him, even if he were allowed to, it would be pointless. Everyone who sits within that congregation will be cast down and die. Psalm 82. I'm not going to read that, but that's what that is about. It tells you, actually, I'll just read it. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Selah. Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of ye are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. To note, so that Mount Zion, the place where Solomon was instructed to build the first temple, was never confused with the idolatrous high places. The threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite was selected as the location for the temple rather than the summit of the mountain. Many believe that God would have chosen the highest point for his temple as a show of power and dominance. Ironically, that's the reason the place presently called the Temple Mount would have never been chosen by God. His holy mountain was never intended to be confused with the idolatrous high places. And make no mistake, folks, the Temple Mount is an idolatrous high place. Rather, the Jewish temple was built down the mountain and in the city of David. Ezekiel pinpoints this as the location where his temple will eventually be built and clearly states it is at a lower elevation than the summit of Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah is the Temple Mount. Mount Zion is where the temple was built. 2 Chronicles 3:1. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Not on Mount Moriah, roundabout related to Mount Moriah. And we learn this from Ezekiel 40, verse 1. In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that the city was smitten. In the selfsame day the hand of the Lord was upon me and brought me thither. In the visions of God brought me into the land of Israel and set me on a very high mountain. That's Mount Moriah. By which was as the frame of a city on the south. That's the city of David. And he brought me thither, to the city of David. And behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand and a measuring reed, and he stood at the gate. Ezekiel was taken to the frame of the city south of Mount Moriah, and shown the dimensions of his temple, for to give them to Israel to build in the future. This is to say that Ezekiel was taken to the high place, to look down upon the correct location for his temple, the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite in the city of David. Call them the high places. Call them the north parts. Call it the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. All of it goes back to principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, and spiritual wickedness in high places. It goes back to the thrones and dominions that stand against God and his holy Mount Zion. Eventually, they will be cast down and defeated. In the interim, the armies that come from these north parts are featured in Ezekiel 38 and 39's Battle of Gog and Magog, and in Jeremiah, Joel, and Revelation's end times. They may have different timings to serve different purposes, but their goals are always the same: to try to defeat God. This he will most certainly not allow. It is with this understanding of mountains in mind that we return to Revelation 17 to find the beasts, along with the 7 mountains upon which the woman sits, are all kings. Revelation 17:8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell in the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and here are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. The beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. The beast who is the 8th, being of the same ilk as the previous 7, is properly named Apollyon the Destroyer. Apollyon is not, because he is presently confined to a place we saw open. Said pit was opened in trumpet 5, and his appointed time to ascend out of it was trumpet 6. Revelation 11:7. When they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. Who then are the 7 rulers that came before this final beast? The 5 that had come are references to leaders of the kingdoms of Egypt, Assyria, Babylonia, Medo-Persia, and Greece. The one that is, or was in John's time, referred to a leader of the Roman Empire. We'll do that. The one that had not yet come, but when he did was to continue a short space, was likely a reference to the Ottoman Empire, not a revived Roman Empire, as many would suggest. It is important to note that the understanding of who these leaders and kingdoms are goes back to who has had rule over the geographic land or people of Israel. This makes it easier to understand the progression of empires from Egypt back in the days of Moses to the Ottoman Empire, which ruled from 1517 to ruled until approximately 1917-1918, the time when Israel began to return to her land due to the Balfour Declaration. The 8th, who is of the 7, will rule over the land and people of Israel until Jesus returns to end that rule. The 8th, who is of the 7, will rule over the land and the people of Israel until Jesus returns to end that rule. Daniel 11:39. Now keep in mind, Daniel 11:36 is the abomination of desolation. So respective to that, 3 verses later, thus shall he do in the most strongholds with the strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. He shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. And this is Revelation 13:7. Also, it was given unto him to make war with the saints, to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. This is not Revelation 6, rider on the white horse, type stuff. This is Revelation 13, beast type stuff. and they are not the same. If you haven't gotten that point, please get that point. The imagery in Revelation 13, like the imagery here in Revelation 17, showed us the beasts with 7 heads and 10 horns. The 10 horns are the next object of description here in Revelation 17. Verse 12, the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, pretty easy, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire, for God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So obviously, I have to stop here. The next part of this is to describe these verses, so we'll go back to the book of Daniel and do that. And then obviously we will highlight Zechariah 14 also because of this little clause here. When Jesus returns at the second coming, there's going to be a group of people with him. Who are they? This is the fulfillment of the prophecy of Zechariah 14. The Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. So, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I know I had to stop the video if you didn't realize that I had to stop it a lot and kind of tweak things as I was going. But I wanted to make sure that I could post this afterward. So I will do that now. As always, though, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, let me know. But this is what I have so far for Revelation 17. And I'm going to hopefully conclude it in the next couple of days. We'll see you guys later.